Yeah. Welcome back to the Tim Anderson Podcast. I'm Tim. That's my buddy Ryan over there, left-hand side of the screen. Did a full scrubbing of his computer area space today. Rhino, the place looks great.
Thanks. Put up the new shelf behind me this weekend.
I said the shelf looks different. You got your own mixing bowl behind you. I mean,
so we just needed an expansion for storage in the kitchen because we just ran out of space.
I was gonna say, you gonna make a cake while we're doing the pod tonight? You gonna have something going in there?
Well, I gotta store it somewhere, and I don't want to keep storing it on the counters where I want to be like cooking stuff. And I just running out of space in the kitchen, had to make some room. So
I think I like it. Hey, I think it adds. I think it's a good thing. I like it.
We've wanted it for a while, but we put that together this weekend. I put it together this weekend, and then.
The royal we.
Today.
Yeah. Are we ready for dad talk already, right?
I say we. Lauren took Kieran to Target and walked around while I got that done because I just needed some alone time.
As I say, it's a joint effort. It's a joint effort at that point then. Yeah, for sure.
And then today I took everything off of my desk and did my yearly sand down the desk, applying more butcher block conditioner and
sanded down the desk. Just nothing but like splinters. Were you getting issues there, or just
no?
Every once in a while?
It's good to clean it. So it's like I have like divots and stuff like that in there that just like dropping stuff on it. The kid comes up and bangs his cars on the desk.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Just sand those out and put more conditioner on it, and then just redo the cable management.
Love it. I'm glad you did it. You're a busy man today, and of course on the other side, wearing a Green Bay Packers jersey today. It's Victory Monday. So no doubt that's the reason why. Celebrating these are the wins that you give Ryan a hard time for celebrating, but you get to do it today, Zach. Congratulations. Zach Neighbor joins the pod.
Yeah, I've got a few Bears fans in my class and who work down the hall from me, so I had to wear it today just for them.
Is that the Donald Driver you're going with, or the?
No, this is a Reggie White.
Reggie White. Okay. It's funny because I walked in, they just opened that new Rally House in the Riverdale, that nice sports store, and they have a nice little Packers section, but what's the first jersey you see stitched up high is Donald Driver. And I'm like, of all the guys that you can have a Packers jersey of right now, like Donald Driver's the top guy up top stitched. Interesting.
I was looking for a new jersey today online a little bit, but I did not commit to anything.
You're not ready to give Jordan Love your money yet? Not ready to do that?
I don't know if I want to go quarterback.
Yeah, you like to be different. Maybe you're trying to get on board with you need like another John Kuhn type character, right? Like somebody who's loved by the fans, but kind of a grit guy. You need another one of those guys. Is it Kraft? Is it maybe your new tight end? Could it be him? Maybe that's the guy.
Yeah, we'll see. I looked a little bit, I'd prefer to order it from China and pay half the price. So
let me know when you're in on the next order. I'll join you on that one.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll get some throwbacks in there. I need an Earl Campbell really bad. Anyway, welcome to the podcast. As of this hour, first of all, I'm feeling a little better. So that's nice. Number one, after about a month and a half of cough, and I just slept in today, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. But back at it, as we know, as of right now, Doug Peterson is still employed gainfully by the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Texans and the Cowboys are duking it out as we speak. The Texans are still ahead, I'm assuming, Ryan, yes?
Yeah, 17-7.
17-7 over the hapless Cowboys. There's pieces of metal flying off the stadium at the beginning of games. Almost killed somebody this morning, but short of that, everything seems to be going great down there in Dallas. So.
And it is on ABC again this week.
Oh, it is on ABC again this week. Very well, because you can't resist getting the Cowboys on primetime, boys and girls.
Well, I saw earlier in the year when they pulled the trigger on this, they said basically it was going to be on ABC all but like 2 nights the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So is there a writer's strike going on again?
There just must not be very good Monday night programming for ABC.
I think that's what they said. There was a shortage of new programming, and so they're like, well, we might as well just simulcast.
Well, they're going to make more money doing that than they would probably off of any show that they put up. I mean, there's only some. What is Jim Belushi doesn't have a project, or Tim Allen doesn't have a project going right now? They can't put on ABC. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I'd rather watch 2027 State Farm Insurance Salesman of the Year, Cooper Rush, throw these PB&J sandwiches all over the yard.
Wow, do we have a treat for you on Thanksgiving?
Yes, sir. Yeah. We do. Ryan, are you a big fan of PB&J sandwiches and cutlets? Because that's what you're getting on Thanksgiving, me boy.
The old passing paisan back in the driver's seat.
Paisan is back at it again. Yes, this morning it's been revealed, or I think maybe it was yesterday morning, but I think it was this morning, actually. It's been a long news cycle. Daniel Jones benched, but not even to the second string. He's the third string. Notably, for the foreseeable future, we will probably not see Daniel Jones again for the New York Giants. This is the same thing as the Russell Wilson thing last year, where they're like, hey, we're not trying to pay this guy anything. We need to get him out of here. So Tommy DeVito, Tommy Cutlets, is back in as the starting quarterback.
It's an interesting decision. I saw someone trying to justify it by saying the same thing, like, well, Drew Lock has all these incentives, but when you look at Drew Lock's incentives, the most he can get is like an extra $1 million. Like, none of the other stuff is reachable because it's all like, you have to do this and make the playoffs. It's like they're not making the playoffs. So
yeah, that's for sure.
So I can't imagine it's over $1 million. I got to think it's more what we've talked about. They're gunning for a pick in the draft and a quarterback.
And I think it's the Jones guarantees too, right? Like if Jones gets hurt, the Jones guarantees I think are the big things, right? Because if he gets hurt in a game and now all of a sudden you're on the hook for another $15-20 million of cap hit, you can't do that.
But it's still interesting that they went all the way to DeVito, who was the third quarterback all year.
Yeah.
And skipped Drew Lock. And I don't think the $1 million is what made them do that.
Do you think
they're just trying to lose?
Do you think that's trying to lose and sell a few tickets? Like, because in December with 4 games left, they don't want, like, I think Francesa talked about this, that New York doesn't want 25,000 empty seats in MetLife Stadium. And at least with DeVito, you get a guy in there that the fans like versus Daniel Jones. Like, at least the fans sort of like Tommy DeVito for some reason. You know, if it's the whole one of us, New Yorker, he's a paisan. I don't know what it is, but the fans seem to at least like there's a novelty to Tommy DeVito.
Maybe. I don't know. Is he really going to move the radar that much? I mean,
not for me. I mean, I'm not interested all that much.
Even the people there who like him, I mean, you're probably driving away just as many people by saying we're done trying. I don't know.
Yeah, you're trying to convince people to drive all the way to East Rutherford where the parking's horrible and the traffic's horrible and spend, a couple $100 on a Giants game and Tommy DeVito's the guy. It's a hard sell.
You know what could be really fun next year?
Yeah.
Daniel Jones being a successful quarterback for the Jets.
Now that is
they're going to be in the market, right? I mean,
they sure will. Yeah, they'll need a bridge.
You got to think that Aaron's probably done, and if not, they probably need someone ready for the following year. I don't know. It could happen.
Ryan, here's my scenario for you. Ready? Here you go. Darnold leaves at the end of the season because he can get paid $15 million to start somewhere. Hang on. McCarthy's not ready. He comes to camp, knees balky. What are they going to do? Well, KOC says, I'm the quarterback whisperer. Look what I did with Darnold. Look what I can do. Give me Daniel Jones. I will pay him $10 million and he will be my quarterback and we will resurrect him in Minnesota.
There is a 0% chance that anyone other than JJ McCarthy is starting game 1 of next year, barring injury.
Well, that's what he said. He said his knee is still banged up. That was the scenario.
But
yeah, I said that's the scenario.
It's a meniscus, not an ACL, MCL tear.
That's my point. He should be out there this year. But if the meniscus was so bad to sit him out the entire year,
I think the feeling from almost every reporter was that it was mostly precautionary,
and maybe or they just said, not sold. Maybe I don't know. Who could say? Or he's soft. Could it be that he's soft?
No, I don't buy that. I think you're trying to get under my skin.
Get Ryan going. Are you trying to say we're trying to get? Would Daniel Jones upset you that much?
I don't know that I could watch a season of Daniel Jones in purple.
Would you hire Daniel Jones as the backup to JJ McCarthy next year?
Maybe. I think there's better options out there for backup quarterbacks.
Like who? There's nobody's good in this league. Half these guys stink. Did you watch Jameis Winston yesterday?
There's guys that could step in.
Did you watch Mac Jones yesterday?
Draft somebody, right? Go use one of those 6th-round picks and go draft somebody.
I'd rather have Daniel Jones than random 6th-round pick. It's just me. Anyway,
if it costs you $10 million, $10
$10 million is the going price for a good backup. When your season gets derailed by an injury, you kind of want a guy who's competent, right? Don't you? You want a guy that you kind of believe in a little bit, I would think.
I don't know. I'm not too concerned about the Vikings backup quarterback situation next season.
That's true. So Daniel Jones sits. He's done. Finito. Yeah, we're still waiting. The big news is, and I think we were all three convinced that this would happen, and it still might. Like, it might happen tomorrow morning. It might happen because they're on the bye this week, right, Ryan? Jacksonville?
Are they? Let me look. I got the bye weeks right here. Yeah, they're on bye.
So this might still happen, right? But Doug Peterson, not fired yet in Jacksonville. Zach, are you a little surprised by this?
No, because again, what do you gain? There's not a lot that's gained by firing the coach in the middle of the year, right? It's not. We've talked about this before. Like in baseball, it'll happen and a team has rallied, and make the playoffs. It's a long year. Firing the coach here isn't going to change anything this season. And again, do they have anyone on staff that you are like, hey, I really would like to see if that guy's good enough?
And
no, that's true.
They're already guaranteed a losing season. It's not like you're going to turn it around and make the playoffs right now. You're 2-9.
Right. I mean, now, seeing the Cheetahs get beat by 50 did crush my son again this week, but.
Well, the Lion's going to beat a Cheetah, every time. All right. They're just going to, that's not going to, Cheetah's not winning that battle.
I'm looking at their coaching staff right now. Like the only guy I've ever heard of is Mike McCoy, the quarterback's coach.
Oof.
So I don't know who you would.
No, but that's where these things sort of become just self-fulfilling prophecies to a certain extent, right? There was all this talk heading into the game yesterday that if they got blown out, he'd probably be fired. And not only did he get blown out, they got blown out for like size, 52-6 against the Lions. And the Lions kept pouring it on, which the Lions, I don't know what to make of them, but they show no quarter. They show no quarter to their opponents, and they will run up the score on anybody. But they were intent on blowing out Jacksonville, and Jacksonville was content on getting blown out.
Could we be talking about Mike McCarthy getting fired?
No.
Well, McCarthy won't get fired during the year.
Yeah, Jones doesn't do that. He did it once, and I think he's always regretted it. I don't think he liked that he fired Wade Phillips in the middle of the season. He said that. But, I don't know. They're not good. But that's it. They're not good. They don't have any talent. It's just they're just not a very good team.
So I was over at my parents' just before this, and my dad also brought it up. He's like, who would want that job right now in Dallas?
I certainly don't want that job.
Right? Aside
Ryan Day.
No.
A guy can dream.
Yeah, I don't know who would want that. Certainly nobody of note, because if you look at his coaches outside of Parcells, who has he hired after Jimmy Johnson of any substance? You could say Switzer, sure, but Switzer was really just playing with Johnson's guys. Campo and
pretty, it was a good get out of college, though.
Yeah, it was a good hire. I'm not saying Switzer couldn't coach, but Switzer was clearly cool with being a Jerry kind of yes man guy at that stage, because he's like, yeah, I got all this talent. I'll just let them do whatever they want, and I'm just going to care about Sundays.
The Cowboys, to me, feel like, that transition from when Al Davis clearly lost his touch to bottoming out in kind of the early 2000s. If Jerry doesn't let this go, it feels like that's the track, right?
Because Al Davis couldn't get a coach of any substance.
Yeah, because no one wanted to work with him. Yeah,
after he fired Shanahan in the late 80s, he had a hard time getting a coach. He had Art Shell for a few years because he kind of went to old Raiders for a while. But he ran Norv out of there and all these guys that just couldn't hold on to the job. He made some bad hires there too, but he hired a lot of young guys. The only guy he got right was Gruden, and it was sort of by luck to get a young coach like Gruden who actually was good at calling plays.
It just feels like you're not going to be able to get established coaches because they don't want to work with you. And young guys aren't going to want to take a chance on a career where they don't trust that you're going to build the best roster.
Well, I mean, they've always built a decent roster, right, Zach? I mean, Jones has made good picks and brought in good players. Right now, though, they're just overpriced, right? All the guys they've kept they've just put all their money, I think, into the wrong guys.
Yeah, I mean, there's a yes and no there. Like, there's been some good things, but there's been some bad things there. And
sure,
I mean, we could talk even if you're looking at this year. Like, do they have talent? Yes, they don't have a running back though.
Yeah, it's true. Rico Dowdle has not looked great tonight. Yeah. I think that's fair to say.
I mean, there's a lot of ways to look at it. I think, okay, so I just circling back real quick on the coaching thing. Do you think that with the Raiders discussion, like they did hire Lane Kiffin?
Yeah.
And now Lane he struggled there, right? I mean, he was 5-15 when he got fired, but he's only there for,
not long,
over a year.
Yep, that's right.
And maybe, they pulled the plug too quick on that because he has had some success, right? I mean, he turned things around his first year at Tennessee.
He's really won everywhere he's gone.
Right. He went 10-2 at USC, and like, yeah, he's struggled. And yes, he obviously had some, I don't know if maturity issues are the right word, but some growing up to do a little bit, right? He was 31 when he got the job, wasn't he?
Yeah. So, he was very young.
But I mean, he's had a lot of success with college stuff.
I also think that there's something to be said about guys like Jerry just don't like coaches with a lot of personality.
No, and that's a whole, I mean, McCarthy's not Mr. Personality.
Right.
So I mean, we can get to speculating on this more maybe in a couple weeks, but we're going to have a decent amount of jobs that are open again.
Sure do. Yeah, we have 2 right now. We know for sure that, I mean, Jacksonville's probably fait accompli at this point. It's probably going to be 3 at some point. There's other guys. Plus, there's always a surprise team.
Sounds like Cleveland will be open.
Yeah, you feel bad for Stefanski because he'll probably get another shot. But yeah, he's probably going to take the rap there. And, Ryan and I talked before the podcast that Zach Taylor, as much as I think Zach Taylor's done a pretty good job in Cincinnati, I mean, obviously he's gone to a Super Bowl, but losing last night, I mean, you got to have that game. I mean, you got to have it. That was a kitchen sink, backs against the wall game. You tie the game. You come all the way back to tie the game at 27. You get 2 chances to take the lead and maybe win the game, and you go 3 and out. Like, you don't even get a first down. Like, at some point, the coach has to eat that. And for all the people, and Burrow has been amazing. Burrow and Chase have been amazing. But, God, when the money's on the line, I need you to come through right there, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Didn't happen last night.
I mean, just buzzing through the list, right? Like, we said Cleveland, Jacksonville probably. Vegas might be open again.
Yeah, who knows, right?
Right. The Giants could be open.
Probably are.
Right. We're talking Cowboys already. Bears, probably.
For sure.
See, I don't think the Giants are open. I don't. I think those 2 have lobbied to say, like, hey, you got to let us draft our own guy.
I think that you could see the Rams open. McVay might decide this is the year to go. He's been on the fence for the last 2 years anyway.
It's true.
So there's going to be a lot of jobs open.
Yeah.
And then again, right, if you're ranking the jobs, where does that Cowboys job fit? Like, the Cowboys name has some cachet to it still, but there's a lot of
hamstrung with no pun intended, you're hamstrung to Dak Prescott. Like, you're married to that big contract and him, because you can't, I mean, so anybody who takes the Dallas job has to love Dak Prescott.
This is not to get back to belabor this, but could we be talking about Atlanta as open too, with the expectations they had coming in and the talent that they brought in, the amount of money they spent, and Raheem Morris underperforming again?
Nah, they're going to win that division still.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I think you'd have a hard sell firing him if he wins the division. I mean,
don't get me wrong, they're not good.
Let's be honest here. The Bears fired Lovie Smith after 10-6.
Yeah,
and the Lions fired Jim Caldwell after a similar season too.
But they gave Jim Caldwell a couple of seasons. They didn't just fire him after one season. Like, Raheem's going to have to get a couple. Like, but I think we saw yesterday, though, a clear example of like Sean Payton's just a way better coach than Raheem Morris is. Because Raheem Morris his guys weren't ready to play. Like they got whooped.
Yeah, I'm just saying
But I still don't think you fire him.
Yeah, you're not going to fire. You can fire a guy who went 10-6, like, and Chicago hasn't sniffed that since, have they?
No,
No.
I think that goes with that. That's something to be said.
And I mean, this slight transition here with the Sean Payton talk, but how good has Bo Nix been lately?
Pretty good.
Has been really good.
What
Yesterday, what do you throw for 304 with no picks?
Where would you rank him in the rookie quarterbacks?
Probably second right now.
Behind Jaden Daniels?
Yeah.
Yeah, and May's been good. Like, would you have Williams fourth? That's the question: is would you have Caleb Williams fourth out of those 4 starting rookies?
Caleb Williams probably played his best game yesterday, which is, if you're a Bears fan, I mean, what you want, right? You want him to continue to get better.
Yeah, I agree.
But like I saw today, someone's like, well, I'd rather have him play well and lose than have him play poorly and win. And I'm like, guys, like, you can do both.
Yeah, you can have both.
You can have both, right? Like, that's just such a loser mindset to be in right now in Chicago, but that doesn't surprise me with that franchise.
I also wonder how many of these teams that have established quarterbacks or guys that are pretty good who are kind of on the fence about whether or not to keep their coach might let them go or consider letting them go to kind of get in on the Detroit OC.
Ben Johnson?
The Ben Johnson sweepstakes.
He's not Vince Lombardi. I'm not ready to give him that yet.
I'm not saying he is, but we know teams want the hot young offensive mind, and he's going out there putting it on almost every team.
I don't think teams do that unless they know he's coming.
It's fair.
Yeah.
Cincy might be that team. I think Cincy's a team that would go all in on him, and they've got the weapons to give him.
That's probably true. I'd be interested to see how that plays out at the end of the season. No doubt about it. But you're right on back to Williams a little bit. Like, I agree with you, Zach. I thought he played his best game yesterday. I thought he did some good things. They started to at least get him to do some things that I think are successful for him. Like, he made some plays with his legs, which I thought was good. I still think Drake May shows flashes. Like, they got beat. They were not on the same level as their opponents yesterday. But I think Drake May's got some skills. Like, I really like him in New England. He's played well. But you're right, Bo Nix, if you want to talk about like maturation from week 1 to week 11, like, who's grown up more than Bo Nix in the last 11 weeks? I don't know if anybody has. Like, he's better than Anthony Richardson right now.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, Anthony Richardson's,
and he played his best game yesterday, perhaps.
God, do we need them? How sad is that? We're cheering for the Colts now.
Yeah, we got to cheer for the Colts, Bengals, and Dolphins the rest of the year. We're cheering for Coach Spicoli.
We just need one of them.
Just need one. Just need one. The other 6 playoff spots look pretty good, like for the AFC. I think those are pretty much in, right? Nobody's going to move off those first 6 teams that are there. Like, those teams are in.
It'd be tough, right? So we need Denver to fall back, and Denver's end of the year schedule is not easy.
No.
I think they close their last 3 weeks are like at Chargers, at Bengals, home to the Chiefs. And they also play the Colts in there too.
Yep, that's right.
So this could be the year, guys. It could happen.
We got it with this. I'm still holding out hope, and things are falling into place. Like, they really are. We'll get to the Eliminator soon. Yesterday, we did lose our last undefeated team. Rhino, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm watching Rico Dowdle drop that ball.
Ryan is just like he's waiting for a bus, like, or he's at the doctor's office waiting for a test result or something like that. He's just every play he's living and dying over there.
There are people on Blue Sky calling Cooper Rush Pooper Flush, and I'm going to be honest with you, the nickname is apt. This is some of the worst football I've ever seen in my life, and I coached the Coon Rapids Cardinals this year.
Pooper Flush.
They're only down 7.
Yeah, that's a testament to how poorly I think Houston's playing too. But, like, God, this is just bad. It's a miracle they have 10 points.
So the last of the unbeatens went down yesterday. The Chiefs fell to the Buffalo Bills. Some people, this morning I was reading on some of the publications that, Finally the Chiefs' flaws have been exposed. The Chiefs are this, that, and the other thing, and they should be concerned. We should be scared. I don't know if I came away feeling that way. It's like, I don't know. They lost on the road to a really good football team. That happens a lot in this league. Like you go on the road sometimes against really good teams and you get beat. Isn't that as simple as that? Or is it more to it than what I'm thinking? What do you think? Let's go, Ryan. Ryan, what do you think? As you've been anti-Chiefs, so I'm going to give you the floor here.
Yeah, I mean, the problems for the Chiefs are the same problems that they've had. You don't get the feeling that they're, oh my God, you don't get the feeling that they're.
Will you calm down? Stop watching the Cowboys,
bro. They're so bad. I'm sorry, they're so bad. The problems with the Chiefs have been the problems with the Chiefs for a while, and you just don't get the feeling that they're playing 100% with 100% effort all the time during these regular season games. They just feel like a team that's coasting a little bit. I don't know. A game like last night, I feel like they probably should have won. That's a tough loss, but Buffalo's a good team, and you can't make mistakes or not go 100% against teams like Buffalo and expect to win in the NFL. So I don't know. The Chiefs remain a mystery to me. I think they're a really good team. They're obviously the favorites in the AFC still, and they're going to be there the entire season because they're that good and they're well coached. They got a really good quarterback. That's the recipe for success no matter where you are. But I don't know how good they are, and we probably won't know until January.
Right.
You weren't concerned, right, Zach? I mean, are you concerned?
Have them ranked tonight.
Yeah, right. They're not in Ryan's 5 tonight, I assure you. But you still have faith, yes? Like you're not selling here yet.
No, I'm not selling. Like you said, right? They lost to a good football team. There's a lot of reasons to still like the Chiefs.
Yeah, sure.
Ryan just throwing some wicked sarcasm here. I love it. But what does it also say though, Zach, about Buffalo? Like me and you, I think and Ryan left Buffalo off the 5 2 weeks ago, right? I think you actually didn't even have them ranked 2 weeks.
They would have been my 5th. I have like a rotating.
Yeah, that's right. You have a rotating thing on 5, but you and I have kind of like Buffalo all year. Was this kind of validation for the Bills and for Josh Allen as like an MVP type candidate, or what? Maybe the approval of their addition by subtraction moves this offseason, getting rid of Diggs, moving on from some of those pieces that maybe had gotten old, and now all of a sudden here they are again.
Yeah, I think the Diggs move and then also getting Cooper there was a nice addition, right? It addressed some of the things and it made them better, partway through the year. Listen, the Bills are going to be a tough out in the playoffs, and it's going to be very interesting to see how the seeding shakes out there, because you also have the Steelers with 2 losses, and that Pittsburgh defense is pretty damn good right now.
Absolutely.
And while they
can't score a touchdown, but sure.
But
the defense is great.
They didn't need to.
Yeah. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the defense.
And they moved the ball. But they moved the ball yesterday on Baltimore. They had the pick in the end zone. That was probably Russ's worst pass of the season. But other than that, they moved the ball.
Yeah,
up and down the field.
We could talk about a lot of different things in that game, and right. I mean, Justin Tucker has struggled the last 2 weeks kicking the ball.
That is true.
As they show the Cowboys kicker almost fall over on his field goal miss. Yeah, so I think that they almost lost that game. They could have lost that game, right? I mean, it came down to a 2-point play at the end, and that was with the kicker struggling all game. So I don't, Pittsburgh is not, the number 1 team with a bullet by any means, but their defense travels, right? We've talked about their special teams probably being the best in the league.
Yep.
And
we completely agree on that. And they've got something with Wilson, don't they? Like, doesn't it feel like they've got a little juice, a little mojo?
Yeah. And they play the Chiefs on Christmas, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So, and you will get to watch that stream on Netflix.
Oh, can't wait. Can't wait for that.
Beyonce's the halftime show. So if you thought that Mike Tyson crashing Netflix was a big deal, we're not going to be able to watch that game. It's going to be buffering the whole time.
Yeah, the word on the street is Go ahead.
Netflix has got some major issues to figure out because I tried watching that, and first of all, like the women's fight was pretty good.
That's what by all accounts.
And it freezes going into the final round. Right? Into the final round. I'm like, oh my God, like what a terrible time.
These were like the early WWE Network when they went to these streaming things for their pay-per-views and everybody said the exact same thing. Now they've kind of got it figured out, but it took a long time to get them there.
Tim, it unfreezes as like Mike Tyson wraps up his interview and walks away with his ass showing. And then it freezes again on his ass. Right? Like, that's what we got back for. So, and then it was spotty throughout the whole fight. It got better as the fight went on. But I think
actually they thought that it was that, but it was really just no action in the ring. Like it was just a boring nothing burger of a fight.
I think other people found other ways to watch it. But
yeah, because the word was that you could flip your VPN, go to a different country basically, and type it in, and you'd be fine. Like that's what a lot of people were doing, I think. So it's kind of an interesting move. By the way, this just in, Logan Paul called out Jimmy Carter for his next fight because he just wants to keep beating up on old men that are feeble. And word is Jimmy hasn't taken the fight yet, but we'll see. We'll get back to you.
Yeah, I heard Netflix offered him $80 million to push George Foreman down a flight of stairs.
Yeah, I think that's what.
Hey, listen, Mike looked good the first 2 rounds.
Mike looks good anyway for a 58-year-old man. He looks great.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
he looked good for the first 2 rounds, and then you could tell he kind of hit the wall. But you know what? More power to him, right? He made what, 15, 20 million?
Yeah, good on Mike. And I will say this: if that fight was in an alley, like outside of a bowling, like if that was in a back alley outside of a restaurant, I think Tyson kills him.
And
but the rules are different in the ring.
We all got to see, right, one of the premier guys from our youth go fight one more time.
Yeah, that's fair.
Even if it didn't deliver what people thought, I think people probably overhyped it.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
They expected way more than they, right? I mean, all the money was on him to win.
Well, I keep telling people, like, because kids were asking me at school too, would like, hey, do you think Mike Tyson will win? And I'm like, well, I guess you could always say he has a puncher's chance, but I think we've seen this movie before. And it doesn't all end like Rocky Balboa does. Like these usually end badly for old fighters. So that's why it's like I'm begging Logan Paul to actually fight a guy in his prime that is worth his salt, and then we'll talk.
Yeah.
Until then,
Tyson's chance was he caught him with something in the first 2 rounds, right?
Exactly. That was it. Come out swinging, get a puncher's chance, maybe you catch him.
Yeah. But anyway, that's enough boxing talk probably for the year.
Yeah, there we go. Now we're good for at least another year on that one. Where were we again? Anyway, oh yeah, tough outs. Just tough Netflix games. That's right. That's where we were at. Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Buffalo. I really think like the 4 or 5 top teams in the AFC are all really good. Like Baltimore lost, and I think there's some concerns about Baltimore because they do struggle to win their closeout games. But I still don't want to play Baltimore. Like I still don't want to go against them in a big spot in a playoff game. Like I don't want to see them. So yeah, that was a big win for Pittsburgh, but I still don't want to see Baltimore.
Definitely see some concern there now.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not in my 5 this week. I must admit, they're not in my 5. Any other storylines from yesterday or Thursday or today that interest you that you think are worth a couple minutes of our time before we get to the Eliminator?
Oh, just on the Steelers thing, like Lamar Jackson just can't beat them. I don't know what it is for him with the Steelers, what they do to him, but he cannot beat the Steelers.
Yeah, is Mike Tomlin the coach of the year right now? Like, I mean, he's having besides maybe Dan Quinn, but I mean, Mike Tomlin's coaching his ass off here. He seems like he's got the answers against some of these guys.
Yeah, hard to argue. I mean, that defense is that they are dogs, man. That defense can flat out play.
I didn't know too. Mike Tomlin's getting better and better at knowing where the camera is. Because, like, he's real good at those shots at the camera with the smile and the sunglasses and the thumbs up. Like, I just feel like he's figuring out where the cameras are these days. Like, I give him a lot of credit. There's a lot of showmanship in Mike Tomlin.
Remember the Thanksgiving night game?
Where he almost tripped a guy?
But he was watching
the best.
himself on the big screen.
Yeah.
He was watching the kick return. Like, he was trying to act like he wasn't.
Yeah.
That guy knows where the cameras are.
Always knows where the cameras are. Love Mike Tomlin for that. Yeah, some other thoughts from yesterday's games, just to kind of put a bow on some of this. Yeah, the Saints win again. The Bud Kilmer theory in play for the Saints. Not that that matters, but just it matters in the sense that the Browns, even with Jameis Winston, just really stink. And that team's going nowhere fast. There's a lot of bad teams in the league. The Jets, your guy Aaron Rodgers just continues to lose games. 3-8 now with the Jets. It's just a lot. Brian Callahan looked like he was going to kill an umpire or a referee yesterday during the Vikings game. I never want to hear the Vikings complain that they don't get calls because they got a call there that Ben Lieber even acknowledged was a call for them. So that's good, but we'll take it. That's why I say these calls even out. These calls find a way to even out in the world. So just pointing that stuff out. All right. Those are my news and notes. Time for the Eliminator. Every week on this podcast, we eliminate one team from contention for the playoffs. So far this year, we have eliminated the Giants, the Broncos, which we're holding out hope, the Jags, the Titans, the Panthers, the Patriots, the Browns, the Saints, the Raiders, and the Dallas Cowboys. Who is up for elimination this week?
I mean, we probably have to talk about the Jets.
Yeah, I think so. 3-8. Really not going anywhere.
They're kind of just below that Bengals line of teams that we think could compete with Denver for that last spot.
Yeah, the Jets are probably the leader here.
The problem is we can't eliminate the teams that we're rooting for. We can't eliminate the Colts, can't eliminate the Dolphins, we can't eliminate the Bengals. We just can't.
Well, they're all within 2.5 games of the Broncos with a bunch of games left, right? And if we know the Broncos have tough schedules, those teams could all be in it at the end.
I think the other discussion, the Jets is probably the answer, but the Bears are now 4-6.
Yeah.
They still have 5 games left with the Lions, Vikings, and Packers.
Their next 5 games are Vikings, Lions, Niners, Vikings, Lions.
I think the Bears are the leader in the clubhouse for next week for sure. I think they get the stay of execution this week because the Jets are just worse. But I think when you start, the tough decisions are coming. They really are, because you have all those teams in the NFC West that are basically the same. 6-5, 5-5, or whatever it is. The Cardinals are leading that division by a game right now over the other 3 teams that are 500. And at some point, we got to just do the eye test on one of those teams and eliminate them. And I just don't know when we're going to do that.
I think if we're talking Bears next week, we could be talking Niners the week after that, because they go to Green Bay and then they go to Buffalo. I don't know. You look.
But would you be shocked if they win those games?
No, I wouldn't be shocked, but they just don't look good. They don't look like a team that's competing altogether right now.
It's fair.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of speculation for down the road. The other part is you're still going to have, Tampa Bay may fall out of it. If the Cardinals beat the Seahawks this week, that puts them 2.5 games back technically. So
the only reason I'm bullish on the Bucks is their next 3 games coming out of a bye are Giants, Panthers, Raiders. And they still have a game against the Cowboys and then another game against the Panthers, and they close against the Saints.
If the Bucks could ever get healthy, I don't want to give up on them. I think Baker Mayfield's played his ass off this year.
That's we're talking 3 games down the road. We'll know a lot more by then. So
we'll know a lot more by then.
Jets is the call.
Jets is the call. I agree. 3-8. The Jets, you are eliminated. Thank you. By the way, any apologies tonight before we go to our power rankings? Any apologies?
Oh.
That was a big sigh.
That's a big sigh from Ryan. Would you want to apologize to anybody? Okay.
I want to apologize to the Tennessee Titans and their fans. Look, you got hosed. All right. You got nuts and bolts. You got screwed. The personal foul on the hit on Addison shouldn't have been called. The illegal contact on 4th down at the end of the game on that last touchdown drive by the Vikings shouldn't have been called.
And this is big.
Those were horseshit penalties. You got hosed. So apologies for that. You deserved better. I don't think that I don't think it swung the game very much, just because Tennessee just couldn't move the ball for huge chunks of that game. But still, you want to feel like the game is fair, and that I don't think that game was fair.
It all comes out in the wash, Ryan. I say it all the time. It all comes out in the wash.
I have one other apology if Zach doesn't have one, but
yeah, go ahead.
I want to apologize to the state of Indiana. My second home. I obviously I spent a huge chunk of my childhood. My formative years were spent in Indiana. I have a lot of friends that went to the University of Indiana, or Indiana University. Look, you're not a football school. You're a basketball school. Traditionally, you're having a good season, but you're not walking into Evanston this weekend. All right, you've had a good run. 10-0 is nothing to laugh at, nothing to scoff at. I think that it's you're a good football team. Not gonna deny that.
There's a fan base in Minnesota that would love to be that.
Yeah, sure would. Absolutely. PJ Fleck would be creaming his pants if he got to 10-0.
Hey,
but the fact of the matter is,
they are an emerging superpower.
Yeah.
You didn't go to Lincoln to beat Nebraska. You didn't go to Michigan or to Ann Arbor to beat Michigan. All right. Congratulations on those wins. You can only beat the teams on your schedule where the games are scheduled. Not going to deny that. You got to go to Columbus and you got to face the Buckeyes, a bona fide top 3 team in the country, a bona fide top 3 program in the country, multiple years.
One team though has a loss. One team doesn't.
A 1-point loss on the road to the number 1 team in the country. Let's not pretend like that's the same thing as
a team who struggled against Wisconsin.
In Camp Randall did struggle.
Okay. I'm sure.
If Indiana beats Ohio State, will you come back on here again next week and apologize for the second? That would be a rare feat on this podcast for you to actually come and apologize to the same people twice in 2 weeks.
I'll commit to that. If Indiana beats Ohio State, I'll come on here and apologize. All right. But I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
You're going to walk out onto that field at noon on Saturday, and there's going to be 100,000 people screaming their heads off, wanting to take a shot at you, because Indiana fans have been talking a lot of shit this year for a team that really hasn't done anything before this year. So Coach Signetti, good, get your bag, man. Good for you. You've done a good job.
All that
reality sets in at noon.
All that in year 0 for him too.
Yeah, in year 0. Yeah. Hey, that's very impressive.
Good for him, man. It's a good coach. That's a good team over there.
He's the coach of the year in college football.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, it's not close, right? I mean,
but you know what? Here's the thing. He says, Google me. I Googled him. I did. You know what? The guy wins.
He wins everywhere he goes.
But you know what? You know who else wins?
Don't say Ryan Day because you hate him.
The Ohio State Buckeyes. They win.
Would you take Kurt Signetti over Ryan Day today?
You bet your ass I would. But you know what? Google us.
So you are admitting that Indiana has a better coach, that they're better coach than Ohio State.
Yeah.
You're going to admit that.
But I don't think the talent levels are comparable. You're talking about a team that has NFL talent at every single position in Ohio State. All right. We're not talking about elite players at 1 or 2 positions and good players at every level. We are talking about elite NFL caliber players at every single position on the field.
Ryan, just another young man who hasn't seen Hoosiers, doesn't understand underdog stories, doesn't understand what the spirit of Indiana is all about.
I'm from Indiana, man. I understand it. All right. I'm from Indiana. I get it. Congratulations to them. They should be proud. Reality sets in at noon on Saturday.
Duly noted. Thank you for your apology. I can't wait to hear it again next week. Anyway, Zach, any apologies for you?
Nope, none for me.
You stand on your words this week. You stand on business, as the kids say. I don't have any apologies.
The kids in class today were like, oh, the Bears should have won. The Bears should have won. You know why they didn't? Because winners win and losers lose.
I am living for the TikToks today of the Bears fans watching that kick get blocked.
Oh, yeah.
Just the little kid who's walking around to his dad saying, Daddy, where football? Daddy, where football? And Dad's like hunched over, got his head in his hands. Daddy, what happened? What happened, Daddy?
Those poor Bears fans. They're just so beaten down. There's nothing left.
Couldn't happen to a nicer group of people.
There's just nothing to hang your hat on in Chicago right now outside of like hot dogs and Navy beer, and that's about it. Anyway, yeah, no apologies here. Time for the power rankings piece of the podcast. This is where we give our top 5 every week. Every one of us does, in the hopes that we build a little consensus. We really haven't agreed. Zach and I have been fairly aligned most of the year. Ryan's been the wild card. Sometimes that flips. Sometimes Zach's the wild card, but this year it's been Ryan. We'll go from there. So Ryan, the wild card. Start us off with number 5.
My number 5 team, I had a hard time choosing this week. I have 2 teams that I wanted to slot here. Try to decide between the Steelers and the Eagles. Ended up going with the Eagles here. If you want to get in the 5, you got to score a touchdown. And the Eagles did that. I'll give them my 5.
The Eagles are 5. I have Pittsburgh at 5. I'll take the Steelers right there. I think they have the best defense in the league. I think with Wilson and Pickens, they have found a little something that works. I think Najee Harris is running hard, having a good year. I kind of like them. And obviously their defense is frightening. It's terrifying. So give me the Steelers at 5. Zach.
It's interesting that you bring up defense because the best scoring defense is my 5th team, and that is the Chargers.
That is interesting, isn't it?
And I think a lot of people are sleeping on them right now. Right?
Yeah, they're probably my 7. I thought about them here.
You know, when we'll see a little bit here now, right? They got the Ravens up next. They have the Chiefs in a couple weeks again. You know, the knock on them would be, I think they're like 1-3 against what would be playoff teams right now. But their defense has been so good. I mean, you look at, just go through like 10, 3, 10, 16, like 8. They're playing really good, and they continue to grow offensively under a new head coach, which, by the way, like half the league didn't want. So I think they're my 5th team this week.
And Herbert looked great yesterday. Like, I know there's times I take shots at Herbert because I think he's a bit on the overrated side, but I thought Herbert made some plays, especially in that game-winning drive. I thought he made some big balls throws to some receivers that aren't household names, not great receivers. Although McConkey's getting better. I think he's starting to become like a real threat, but Herbert played well yesterday. I really give him credit for that. Who's number 4, Zach? Leading us back.
My 4th team is the Steelers. With their, again, another great defense. They're 8-2, and we got the big game that we've talked about, right, coming up on Christmas. But the week before that, they get the Ravens again. But that game on Christmas could be for the 1 seed against the Chiefs.
Sure could. Yeah, sure could. No doubt about it. The Steelers have a defense that travels. They think they can play anywhere. Steelers are going to be tough out this year. They're going to be really hard to deal with. Especially in the cold weather, you get them in a home game. I really like the way they're going to be. I got Philly at 4 as I be going back. I think Philly's played really well. Barkley's obviously, it's working. Barkley hurts. They've found something there. Kellen Moore is at least bringing some balance to that offense again by not running Hurts every play and not throwing it 50 times. Like, they have found, I think, a balance and a system that works because they just kind of overpowered the Commanders last week. And they just know how to close. They close games pretty well, I think. So give me Philly at 4. Ryan?
My number 4 team is the Minnesota Vikings. 8-2. They continue to win, do their job. Defense looks really good. Sam Darnold had kind of a get-right game this week. I mean, it's unfortunate that fumble gets credited to him, but I don't think that was his fault. Watching that play, it was Mixon just kind of dropped it. But he looked good this week. That Titans defense is really the only good thing about that team. And I thought they moved the ball well. So I'll put the Vikings at 4.
Do you have any worries going to Chicago?
Not really. I mean, maybe stopping the run a little bit, but no.
It's been a house of horrors for us anyway, even when we're really good.
I think that was a case for a while. They've been better there recently.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, that's true.
I think that I don't know if Caleb Williams has seen a defense that's going to pressure him like Minnesota can. Chicago's offensive line is not good, and the Vikings can get a lot of pressure. So if they get behind and Minnesota can score score some points early, I think that there's going to be some problems for Chicago.
I like that. Who's number 3 coming back for you?
Number 3 for me is the Chiefs. Hey, you had a shot to win that game and just didn't pull it off. The Bills pulled away. That's a tough game to go on the road and win 10 straight, right? you hadn't lost for about a year, right? And
you're bound to lose sometime. I agree.
yeah. And if
I
you're
have
going
the
to lose
Chiefs at 3 as well.
if you're going to lose to that team. So they'll be fine. These two teams will play each other again in the playoffs, hopefully. But that was probably the best game we've seen all year.
I agree with you. I have the Chiefs at 3 for right now. I'm interested to see what they look like when Pacheco comes back. Like when they have Hunt and Pacheco and they can do different stuff out of the passing game that can come more explosive. I saw that they made just a dedicated everything to getting the ball to Xavier Worthy, which I'd like to see them continue to do that because he's a good player for them and I think a potential game breaker. They got to get Hopkins more involved. But this is, they're going to be fine. I like them. I have them at 3. Zach?
I have the Bills at 3.
Oh, interesting.
So my concern, or maybe it's not even a concern, but where they fall behind on my list is just if I look at their resume, they've beaten one playoff team, and that's the Chiefs. Their schedule has not been great, and they've played some close games with some not great teams, right? I mean, they beat the Jets by 3, they beat the Dolphins by 3. And so it's a great win. I have them at 3rd right now.
So you would have the Chiefs at 2?
No, I have the Lions at 2.
Oh, interesting. Wow, okay. So you keep Detroit at 2.
Yep, I keep Detroit at 2. So, again, right, when we look at the Lions, they're playing really well. My problem is, like, when I look at some of these possible matchups down the road for them, I've always talked about quarterback, coach, and defense. And I just don't know how many teams they have the advantage against that they're going to come up against the playoffs. And so, as good as they've been, it makes me nervous coming down the road here of what's going to happen.
So not as much faith in Aaron Glenn as the defensive coordinator as maybe some?
Well, I mean...
and not having Hutchinson, I mean, eventually that is going to be a thing, right? Because they're not getting as much pressure, and there is something to be said for that.
I mean, listen, they're going to be good, and right? I have them; they're my top ranked,
and they're going to probably be the number 1 seed in the NFC. So yeah, you're right.
Right. But like now we're there's minutia here, right? We're cutting up, and so if they were to play the Eagles, let's say in the playoffs. Like, I don't think they have the better quarterback. I think the Eagles' defense is better. And, I mean, possibly you could make an argument about the head coach. I mean, we're not Sirianni apologists here, but, like, you know what I mean? So I
get that.
I mean, there's some interesting matchups come playoff time.
And they got another game with the Vikings. They've got another game with the Packers. Right. They've got some tough games coming.
That could be their first playoff game could be the Vikings.
Boy, that would be something, right? Wouldn't it?
They get a bye, and then the Vikings are the 5, and they go to
Arizona
or Atlanta. Right now it's Atlanta, but it could be either of those teams, right? And they win, right? Like they would end up going, I don't know. So I think there's a lot of things still in the air for me with that team.
Sure.
That I still have them at 2.
I got Buffalo at 2. I'll give credit for a win over Kansas City. Like I'll if you beat them head to head, be the man, beat the man. I can respect that. So I give you the 2 spot. Would I still take the Chiefs in a playoff game? Yeah, I probably would. I probably would. But as of today, I give you credit for the win. So I'll go with the Bills at 2 for me. Ryan.
My number 2 team is also the Buffalo Bills. Beat Kansas City. I mean, that's got to be worth something. So I'll put him at 2 here. I think that Josh Allen's playing, probably the best football we've seen him play. I mean, that touchdown run he had yesterday it's pretty good.
It was big closer stuff. Yeah.
Hard to argue with it. I agree with a lot of the concerns about Buffalo.
Do you trust them in a big spot?
They were in a big spot yesterday.
No, that's not a big spot.
I mean, for seeding purposes, yeah, it is. You beat Kansas City. If Kansas City loses another game here.
Yes, that's what you said. They still need help. They still need, I don't know. That's not a big spot.
I mean, would I take them against Kansas City again? No. I mean, I think that they're probably going to have to go to Arrowhead, and Kansas City's a boogeyman for them for a reason. But I used to say the same thing about the Patriots and the Colts. Right, the Patriots were always kind of Peyton Manning's kryptonite, and eventually you have to beat them to kind of get where you want to go. So do I think that I would trust them? No. Am I willing to be proven wrong by them? Yeah. I think that they're worth it. I think they're a good team.
I trust the coach and the quarterback more in Kansas City.
Oh, absolutely.
Even though Mahomes has not been great this year.
Yeah, he has 15 touchdowns, 11 picks. That does need to be cleaned up a touch for Mahomes, no doubt about that.
So am I up now for one?
One. I've got to come back the other way. Ryan, you got your one. Your one is Detroit?
My one's Detroit.
Same as me.
I mean, look, they're not without concern, right? I don't think there's a perfect team in the NFL right now, but you go out and you put up 56 plus on any team in the NFL, it's a big deal. Like, those are NFL squads for a reason, and I just think that it's hard to put up that many points and hold them to.
And outside of the weird five turnover game, Goff's been pretty damn accurate. I mean, it's just been weird how that game is still weird to me. I still can't understand that one. But yeah, and look at how different this would be had they lost that game to Houston. Like that, what a different world we'd have lived in had they lost. And everybody's like, "Oh, Goff threw 5 picks and they lost." It's so different the narrative because they won that game.
I will say that the concern if you're a Detroit fan is, I mean, obviously it's early in the year, but you lose that game to Tampa, who kind of gives the blueprint on how to beat you, and other teams haven't been able to do it. But you're not winning these games by a ton against good teams.
Yeah.
Right. You're blowing out bad teams, which is what you should do. Right. You credit where credit's due. You're destroying teams like Tennessee and Jacksonville. Good job. But I mean, you beat Minnesota by 2. You beat, Houston by 3. You beat LA by 6. Like, those are games that are one possession games that could flip the other way in a playoff situation. And I think Zach's right. There's some concerns there on the coaching side that I have, that especially on the defensive side of the ball, that come playoff time, I don't know that I trust the defense in a big spot. I don't know if I trust them to be disciplined in a big spot. We've seen before that they can have a bad personal foul penalty at certain times that they can put them behind the 8 ball, especially guys like Brian Branch, that people are watching a little more closely now. He goes low on somebody, and takes them out at the knee, gets a personal foul call. Like, that could be curtains for you on a game-winning drive for another team. So those are things that they may not seem like factors now when you're doing things like blowing out Jacksonville, but when you're playing Philadelphia in the playoffs, and they can run the ball on you, and they can throw on you, and the quarterback can run, that's a problem for a team that has discipline issues like Detroit.
I have Detroit as well for now. Again, you win. It's a snapshot, right? It's a weekly snapshot. These things change. But I have Detroit for a lot of the reasons you brought up. But I'm also concerned. I agree there's no perfect team. Number 1, Zach.
My number 1 team is the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm not going to overreact to one loss on the road against a good team. Their resume is pretty good. They've beaten the Ravens, the Falcons, the Chargers, the Buccaneers. Or sorry, not the Buccaneers, the Broncos.
And the Buccaneers.
They beat the Buccaneers, but the Broncos, those are all playoff teams. Not the Buccaneers, but the other ones, right? So all playoff teams that they've beaten. Mahomes has not played great, and they're still 9-1, right? We just talked about they haven't lost in almost a year until this week. Like, it's a good football team, and the schedule is still relatively soft on the stretch. I mean, there's a Chargers game still, and the Steelers, and then they close with the Broncos, but who knows if that game even matters.
It's true
at that point. So I'm not going to panic over 1 week in a loss. I would still take them against any of the other teams, right? Like, we just talked about the Lions and the Bills, and you guys even said it as much as well. You still would take them. So
yeah, I still would. Yeah, in a snapshot. Yeah, I even think that we've talked about this before too, Zach, on this podcast, that sometimes a loss is good. Like, it kind of gets the pressure release valve hit, and like it makes you sort of like, okay, we got to get back to basics. We got to get, maybe we've been living dangerously. We kind of need to tighten things up. We need to get back to kind of our identity. And sometimes these losses are good for teams because they just reset. Like, I do think that Bucs lost for the Lions earlier in the season was kind of good for them, because it made them go like, hey, we can't let Jared Goff throw 50 times. We have to do something about that. Right? So just something there. All right, there's our power rankings. Let's do some dad talk real fast on our way out the door today. I have a question for the two dads in the room because you have young kids. And Zach, you've lived this because you've been a coach. So I had a lot of parents this weekend on their Facebook statuses and on this other stuff say to me like, gosh, I hate traveling sports. I drove to Iowa how many hours just to play a team 3 miles from our house? Like we're playing the crosstown rival 7 hours away from home in one of these stupid travel tournaments. Is it something that you're glad you sort of dodged at this point, Zach, as far as like, I mean, not as a parent, as a coach, you haven't, but as a parent, you kind of have you? Or what? I mean, how do you feel about these kinds of things? I just hear these parent horror stories. It scares the hell out of me.
Yeah, there's a lot of that right now, especially like in the softball world, where these teams are traveling to, like, say, Sioux Falls, and it's just all the teams from here playing each other in Sioux Falls, right? There might be like a couple of Dakota teams there, but it's, 90% Minneapolis teams. So I think the issue is this. There's like 2% of the teams out there in Minnesota need to travel that far to find comparable competition. Everyone else, you can stay around here and play comparable teams and quality teams and still get a variety. You don't have to do it because, right, it's tough. I mean, like, we went to Chippewa Falls last year, and in the finals, like the final couple games we played, I think there was a Bloomington team, and I think we played Eastridge out there as well, or a team that was based in Eastridge. There was one year we went out there, and it was when I was coaching just the group of like Coon Rapids kids, and we played the Moose in the championship, and that's out of Blaine. So like we drove there and we played each other in the championship. So I think there's too much of it. It's fine if you're going out of town once, for the experience, the team building, etc. But there's some of these teams that are going out of town like every week.
Yeah, it's a lot of travel. I feel like way too much.
Yeah, it's so much. And this idea of like college exposure and stuff, it's not necessary because, again, I got a kid crying.
Oh, I can hear you. Ryan, I'll defer this to you while Zach's dealing with the crying kid because you're not there yet. You have a youngin'. But, 5-6 years from now, you're going to have a conversation about, hey, is he going to play a soccer thing or is he going to get on this traveling thing? Is this something that you and Lauren have kind of thought about, talked about, discussed? Like, what are your moves going to be if you get to that spot?
I think that we're fine with it. The one thing that I'll say is that we're only saying no to hockey.
That was going to be my next question is based on this, are there sports that you've already said no to?
Yeah, we're not doing hockey. It's too expensive. You have to do camps if you want to play varsity at a certain level. I just don't think that it's super accommodating to families that don't have the funds or the availability to do stuff like that, which sucks because I like the sport and it's super popular here. But the fact is that Kieran's not going to play hockey. He might learn to skate, but that's just not something that we're going to do around here. So,
but even wrestlers seem like they travel all the time too. Like I hear all these stories about our wrestlers who are going to Virginia for a wrestling match or something like that. It's just, it seems just odd to me to do all this.
Yeah. And wrestling is a kind of sport too, where, all you really need is a singlet, headgear, and shoes, right? It's the only equipment that you need to buy, and it'll last you for a long time. So it's a little bit different than, every year I got to buy new skates, and I got to travel, and I got to go to camps, and the overhead cost is a little bit lower for wrestlers. It's the same thing with basketball players, right? You got to buy a pair of shoes.
Yeah.
But so what I was going to say before I had to run upstairs there, we hear a lot about like we need to do these things for college exposure, right? And the reality is that 90% of the kids are all going to go within 2 hours of home anyway.
It's true. Yeah.
Right. They don't need to. And if it's very rare that a D3 kid will go 5-6 hours away and stick there for their 4 years. So I think there's a lot of that. And listen, it's great. Like, if you want to go play college softball, you want to be a wrestler in college, right? Some of these sports where there's not really a future in it beyond college, great, right? Like, that can be your goal. But I think you need to have a perspective on it, because I think a lot of these families, right, they spend all this money looking for a scholarship. And it's like, well, you know what? If you play on a team that doesn't cost $5,000 a year, and you play on a team that costs $1,000, and you bank that money for the 6 years of, competitiveness when they're doing that, that's probably more money than you're going to get in your scholarship anyway at most of these levels.
Yeah, and I think that's what leads to some of the angst of parents, right? Like, when you get to the high school level, the stuff you deal with, right, Zach, is that parents, by the time they get to you, have poured thousands into their kids, hoping that this would pay off for something, and then they end up not cracking your lineup, and now you're the bad guy, right? I think that's what undoes things more than anything.
Yeah, I think there's some of that out there, definitely. And the hard part too is, right, like when those kids are on a team in the summer, as much as, like, I'll hear some coaches say, well, in the summer, like, I just can run my best lineup all the time and stuff. Well, that's not true. Like, those guys are trying to balance all 12 kids, because all 12 of those kids paid, and you need those kids to come back, right? That's how these giant programs exist.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the pressure from the top too, is like, if you're coaching a team and those kids aren't coming back, then they're not going to hire you to coach again the next year.
That's right.
Because they want kids to return to continue to feed the thing. Now we start wrestling tomorrow. Tomorrow's our first wrestling. Garrick's going to go do that. So.
Oh, really? So that's fun. That's cool. How? What made him want to do that?
There are a couple boys at daycare who are older who wrestle.
Okay.
Which kind of brought it up. And, we're looking for something for him to do kind of in the winter to burn some energy.
That'll do it.
But it's interesting because he was exhausted today.
Well, it's super physical. I mean, God, I don't know how you have the strength.
He didn't have wrestling yet.
No, okay.
Exhausted from school.
Oh, really?
Right. Well, he's in that kindergarten phase where, they probably could sleep a little more than they do. And
that's fair.
So he was just exhausted and cranky. So I'm like, well, we'll see how it goes tomorrow when you got to go wrestle. And also I think it'll be, the wake up call will be the first time someone takes him down. Right. Like,
yeah.
Right. So we have they have 2 try it days this week.
Okay.
You can sign up for it starting in December. And, he's like, well, I'm going to want to do it, Dad. I want to do it. I'm going to do it. And I'm like, well, we'll see what happens the first time someone takes you down.
And have you had the conversation with him about, like, hey, if this isn't fighting, it's wrestling. So if the kid takes you down, that's okay. Right.
Yeah. We've talked about,
you can't put somebody in a sharpshooter just because we've watched somebody do it on Monday Night Raw.
I told him, like, you have to be aggressive. You have to get them before they get you. That's been the message so far.
Here comes the eye gouge and the figure 4.
If someone takes you down, then you got to get away. And we've worked on a single leg takedown. I'm like, just, you got to grab the leg and
sweep the leg, Johnny.
I'm like, you grab that leg and pull it in tight. So
my favorite used to be when I was wrestling it, I would grab that single leg and stack it up on my shoulder and just take that step and sweep their leg out from under them as they hop around.
Yeah,
that's not bad.
I don't know. We'll see how it goes for him.
I'm assuming that this is something that grandfather Zahn approves of as well, like big, because he's a big wrestling guy.
Yep. He wrestled. I mean, we'll see how it goes, right? It'll be exciting to see.
Well, I look forward to an update next week on Dad Talk of this one. That's
but
good.
No wrestling for Huck. He's not signing up for it yet.
Has Huck thought of anything? Because he's a year younger, right? So I mean, he's still gotta think about it and all that stuff, right?
Huck has played soccer,
okay,
for a couple of different seasons of it, and then he played t-ball this year, and he wasn't quite into t-ball as much as his brother was, but he's also the youngest guy out there, right? I mean,
it's true. Takes a little time.
Yeah, he was definitely the youngest guy, and he could have maybe waited another year. But even last year, he would go watch, and he wanted to join. So so those have been his two sports. So we'll see. We'll see if he wants to wrestle in the future or not. And it's been interesting, right? Caitlin's hockey, but she has not pushed hockey at all with the boys. Same probably thing as Ryan. Like, it's a lot of time commitment and money. And
you probably haven't talked even flag football with the kids yet or anything like that, right? Like, you haven't thought about that.
Nope. They throw the football around in the yard. One of the guys from daycare, his grandma lives across the street from us. So occasionally he'll come over and play at grandma's and then come over to our house and they'll throw the football around and stuff, but they're not doing anything structured.
Good call. I can't wait to hear this wrestling update. That could be a great dad talk for next week, depending on how this goes. If it goes well, great. If it doesn't go well, then it's definitely going to be a good dad talk. For sure.
We'll see how it ends up.
Ryan, you said you had a dad talk for us this week, so the floor is yours.
Yeah. We learned the F-bomb this week. I don't know where he learned that. Don't want to name names. Don't want to name names.
Certainly not. Nobody who does some part-time work on this podcast would not.
Certainly not. It's definitely not a major part of the vocabulary of this household.
Well, according to you, half the household, but
I said I didn't want to name names.
Certainly not. Certainly not.
Not pointing any fingers because I know I'm guilty of some of that too.
When you say some of that, is there a
some
percentage? Is there a percentage that you're willing to put on that?
I'm not pointing fingers. Those in glass houses should not throw stones. Anyway, so I'm sitting in my office the other day and just kind of hanging out, watching stuff and working on some speech stuff. And I hear Kieran in the other room he's got this little stick that he likes to whack around on things. And it's kind of a soft plastic. I just kind of let it happen because as long as he's not, screaming in my face for bananas, I kind of give him free reign to do what he wants downstairs. There's not a whole lot he can do to break things or hurt himself in the living room. So he's in there playing and I hear him saying something and I'm not sure what he's saying. So I walk into the other room and I hear him going, fuck, 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 fuck. Oh, where'd you learn that word, kid? So we're gonna stop with that. And I jokingly looked at Lauren. We were in the middle of a sarcastic conversation.
Jokingly looked at Lauren. By the way,
I looked at Lauren. I said, "What the fuck, Lauren?" And and he standing in his tower, looking into the kitchen. You hear him go, "The fuck, Lauren." So that was fun. Nearly got something thrown at my head. If looks could kill, I'd be dead. The look my wife gave me was nothing short of, you better shut up and keep cooking dinner or we're going to have a fist fight.
So we had a similar.
Oh, I love this.
So with my older two. So Brooke at daycare, I think walked in and there was a bunch of toys out and spilled in like the room. And she kind of held out her arms and said, "Look at all this crap." And so, they tell me about it at daycare because I'm running the daycare at this time.
Yep.
And so we get home and I'm like, I get on my ex-wife. I'm like, you got to watch your language because that is your word and she is copying you. And I kid you not 10 minutes later, we sit down to eat dinner around the coffee table because we would do that sometimes in the living room. We'd sit in there and eat. And Carter dumps his milk. And I just go, God. And he goes, damn it. And finishes it for me. And I'm like, okay, that one's my word.
Yeah.
Seth Meyers has a new bit on that in his new stand-up bit, which I highly recommend because it's really funny. And he talks about how you can see yourself in your kids. And, there's times that he sees his wife. And there was another time that, his kid's building a Lego set and drops the Lego set and it breaks everywhere. And he just kind of throws his head back and sighs heavily and goes, what the fuck? And Seth Meyers said, that's all me. That is all me. What an adorable dog.
What a dog.
Yeah. So
Zach's got the dog in the podcast. Sorry for all of our listeners, just the dogs in the podcast.
There are definitely moments that you see you in the kid. I have those moments all the time with Kieran. I just like little things he does that I'm like, oh, that's all me. Like the defiance and, looking at me while I tell him no, and then proceeding to very slowly do what I'm telling him not to do. That's all me. That was me as a kid. I know it drove my mom crazy.
This is where we're just going to want to get a hand up here, Ryan. Just acknowledge that this is all you.
It's all me. That's it. My bad. The not sleeping anymore. That's all me.
Yeah.
I was never much of a swearer, and then I started doing it as a parody of my grandpa, and I do an impersonation of him because he had a couple of like lines that he would use at times, and then it just stuck. Now I swear too much.
Yeah. I was going to say, I'm the son of a mechanic and a nurse, and I hung out with juvenile delinquents, and that's why I swear, and that's why I'm one of the heavyweight champions of swearing. There's not too many words I haven't heard before, but I can't. My mother tries to act pious, but she's just as guilty as anybody for those swear words that I've learned. So parenting, there it is. You guys, it's a valuable lesson. So what are you doing now? What are you and Lauren doing to censor yourselves? Or jar? Have you put something like that together?
Right now, it's just honor system. We don't really have a system. I'll be honest with you. I don't really care if he swears.
You're not bothered by language. Yeah, language doesn't bother you.
It's a word. What's the point? I mean, like I swear like a sailor, and it's never been a problem in my life. My wife swears more than I do, and it's never. She has a more professional job than I do, and it's never been a problem for her. So like, we don't really have an incentive to not swear. So like, yeah, could he get in trouble at daycare? Sure. Am I gonna back him up on that? Probably. Like, what do I care? Stop being soft. I don't.
Well, the problem is like what words are okay and are not. Like because there's levels of swearing, right? Like, and words that I'm sure, right, you and your wife don't want him using.
Yeah, maybe not till a certain age. But like if he's old enough to understand me saying no, don't say that, and he drops an F-bomb and I say that and he keeps doing it, like we're gonna have a problem because I'm telling you not to do that.
Yeah.
But like, excuse me, sorry. I don't really care if you swear. I care that you listen to me. And
what if he just walks in tomorrow and drops the C word out?
My first question would be, where'd you learn that? Because that's not a word we use.
Well, what do you care? I mean, it's just a swear word. You just said
it's just words. You said language.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
the response would be, hey, don't say that word. You don't know what it means.
Language is a construct, all right? I mean,
it is. But again, it comes down to don't say that. Like, you have no reason to be saying that.
That's fine.
You haven't had enough problems in your 2-year-old life to be dropping words like that. Like that's
You have enough problems in his 2-year-old life to be dropping the F-bomb. I mean, what
he's
problems he's facing here.
Look, punching some holes in this theory of yours, right?
He doesn't get a banana, man. That is like the end of the world for him. He can't find his Lightning McQueen car that changes colors when he holds it for a long time.
We eat so many bananas here. Why I say we? I know. Like the kids.
I know.
Yeah, the royal we. We're right back to that again. The royal we.
So many bananas. It's like Caitlin buys a bunch like every 2-3 days.
We buy 3 pounds of bananas a week.
Christ, all Friday.
And he will eat all of them by Thursday.
I gotta go for a banana right now.
It's amazing how much and how quickly and it's not me eating them.
Yeah, I'm barely eating anything in the house right now.
I would go for a banana right now though. If you offered me one, I'd eat it. Like right now. I might need to go to the store.
I'm mostly baking right now. Like we're in baking season.
I need to get you got it. I gotta figure something out. I gotta learn to bake.
We had our bake off at school today.
Mm.
Did not go my way.
No,
did not.
So the ingredient we had to use was pumpkin.
Okay.
So I made these mini muffins with cream cheese frosting and some brown sugar. And let me put it this way: I got done last night and I tried one, And I was like, yeah, not winning this year. They weren't bad. They weren't bad.
They were edible, yeah? I mean...
Oh, yeah. I won last year, right? So I was the defending champion. And
they just threw the ingredient at you that you just weren't ready for, the pumpkin.
I do not have a go-to for pumpkin. I'll be honest.
It's not even like a pumpkin bar or a pumpkin cookie or something.
A pumpkin bar won.
Yeah. And that makes sense.
It was good. I mean, and mine was like kind of like a take on that, but it just, yeah.
My go-to with pumpkin would be like a pumpkin bread with candied walnuts.
Yeah. Yeah, I could get down with that. Or
I made a cranberry curd this week for a cranberry tart with a hazelnut maple crust.
That'll be good for me when I get a bladder infection. I feel like I'll be just fine for that because cranberry is kind of my go-to on that one.
It's real good. I roasted the hazelnuts a little bit too long, so they've kind of got like a coffee aroma to them at this point, but I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I used the air fryer and made a Tyson chicken tender this morning. So
I do like the air fryer.
The air fryer's been like, maybe if there's one invention that I will say like, hey, if we can go back to the 1990s, but I can keep one invention, might be the air fryer. I might choose to keep the air fryer over, and then everything else can go back, and I'll start at 1995 with the Rockets and the Magic in the finals. I'll just start with that. That's where I'll go.
Wow, that's a bold statement. I don't know.
That might be a dad talk for next week. If you go back to your youth, you can take one new thing with you. Air fryer would be right there for me.
I definitely would not take cell phones.
Yeah. You sit on that one for a week. Let's revisit that for dad talk, because that could be a good one.
I know my answer.
We've actually discussed a little bit at work, like, thank God there were not phones while we were doing
Oh my God, thank God. Are you kidding me? Oh my Lord. There's no question about it. I've had several conversations with people about that. Like, there's no way that I would survive with what would be out there now. Are you kidding me? Not that I did anything illegal, but Jesus Christ, I wouldn't want that out there for public record.
Hey, Peter, just checking out some of that internet porn. I got to get back.
I got to get back. I got to get back. Oh, that's an hour and a half, boys. Great job. Well done this week. We will sit on this one. Next week is the Thanksgiving pod, so we'll talk about all the things we're thankful for. It's not the Festivus pod when we air the grievances. That is a month away, but we're all getting very excited for that. I think that's our 4th annual airing of grievances, which I know some people have requested. They're very excited about. But next week, little Thanksgiving pod. Very excited to give that to you. Ryan will lay out his entire menu for what he would cook on a Thanksgiving, and we will enjoy that. It'll be a fantastic. And then we'll talk about Tommy Cutlets versus Cooper Rush or Pooper Flush. It's going to be a hell of a game next week. Can't wait. Until next time. By the way, go ahead and please, if you haven't heard Peak Cinema, Anchorman is up right now. Hope you have a chance to take a listen to that. That's our 49th Peak Cinema episode. Next week will be number 50 next time we do that. And this is episode 320 of just the podcast in general. So we've been at it a long time. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment wherever you go. We'd appreciate it. Thank you so much for that. And until next time, for Zach, for Ryan, this is Tim saying keep your head up, and we'll see you.